behind and then moved to Singapore. So I asked the same question 5 years ago that I asked 25 years ago. I said, what do I want to do now in this chapter of my life? So if I tell you that I know fully the answer, I'll be lying. But I do know one thing even from my past experience, that the God that I believe know the answer. I don't know, but I saw the evidence of it 25 years ago. So I tried to do it on my own, walking that in the midst of unknown, and I failed miserably. So I relied on God, and then He started open things up in unbelievable ways that I would never expect that He would do. So one lesson that I learned from 25 years ago is if I don't know, that's fine, but my God knows. And that's one thing that I can hold on even now as I'm making this transition back to Asia Pacific. I still have a house in the US. I still have friends. They keep asking where I'm coming back. I have no answer to that. So I don't, even as I'm sitting here, I don't know if I'm ever going to come back to US or if I'm going to stay in this part of the world. I have no idea. But I know God knows. And I'm willing to put my faith on Him more than anything else. So hopefully that helps a little bit. That's my answer. My long answer to the short question.
That's why I kept it to once. Thank you.
Yeah, unlike Tim, I speak broken English, so I will speak in Indonesia. If you have question in English, then Tim will answer.
And he will translate.
Ya, saya tidak punya luxury seperti Tim mungkin, karena saya berasal dari keluarga miskin di Surabaya. Jadi sejak kuliah semester 1, akhir semester 1 saya harus kerja. Jadi, what is the biggest worry? I have to survive. Saya dimuridkan di Penantas. Saya terima Tuhan Yesus SMA kelas 2 November tahun 80. Dan itu the turning point yang sangat signifikan dalam hidup saya. Dan saya selalu ingat bahwa Tuhan angkat saya dari sampah gitu ya. Jadi itu that's only one question. How to survive dengan cara Tuhan, taat pada firman Tuhan, tetapi dalam satu environment yang cukup sulit gitu ya, memang pada waktu itu. Jadi saya harus kerja, saya harus pelayanan, saya harus kuliah all at the same time. Kira-kira itu mungkin ya.
So I'll also speak in English. Jadi that's one of the, actually there was another follow-up question was that that was the worry like few years ago. Then looking back, how do you think that worry was like? Was that worry founded? Atau apakah kekhawatiran itu sesuatu yang natural, tapi apakah itu ternyata sesuatu yang real gitu? Apakah kekhawatiran itu ternyata sesuatu yang harusnya tidak dikhawatirkan, atau apakah memang jadi bagaimana menanggapi kekhawatiran itu waktu kalau Yohanes kalau Tim kan udah menjawab at the end of the day looking back you have faith in your God that knows the answer. Kalau Yohanes looking back how was that worry put into perspective now looking back?
Cukup menarik karena sebenarnya justru melalui pengalaman hidup, struggling bersama dengan Tuhan, memenuhi kebutuhan hidup. Ya. Saya menikah dalam usia muda juga. Di situ saya lebih mengenal Tuhan yang saya sembah. Jadi akhirnya by His grace, I can be where I am today gitu ya, mana saya sekarang bisa berada. Gitu. Jadi anugerah Tuhan selalu cukup dalam hidup saya. Tidak pernah berlebihan, tetapi apa yang Tuhan kerjakan dalam hidup saya itu beyond even my wildest imagination at that time gitu ya. saya tuh nggak pernah kepikir bisa jadi atau Tuhan tempatkan atau sebagai steward Tuhan percayakan sesuatu yang seperti yang saat ini gitu ya. Nggak pernah kepikir saya hidup di Singapura, nggak pernah kepikir. Saya dulu mimpi mau sekolah ke US gitu ya. Saya tuh mimpi setengah mati. Orang tua saya punya tabungan sedikit, ada teman saya yang udah duluan ke US. Akhirnya papa saya kena stroke, duitnya itu habis buat ke rumah sakit. Jadi akhirnya saya daftar ke Petra itu udah gelombang terakhir, udah mau tutup. Jadi itu pun saya masih belum give up gitu ya. Saya ngambil bahasa Jerman lagi karena katanya sekolah di Jerman gratis. Anyway, so akhirnya Tuhan tetapkan saya di Surabaya gitu. Dan saya nggak pernah mimpi kalau saya bisa doing business sampai ke US yang dulunya saya dreaming. Dan saya kerja cukup lama dengan Costco di US for 28 years ya. Terus banyak chain store di US yang lainnya. Jadi it's beyond saya tuh nggak pernah bayangin gitu. That's how grace works.
So I think from both of your stories, kayak kita bisa lihat both of you had like a beginning di mana ada worry and ada concerns, and then now looking back, you already know like the ending. Like, can you guys kayak both of you fill us through kayak the period in between those two endpoints? Like kayak when was the moment kayak kalian sadar bahwa iya ini tempat saya di mana Tuhan menempatkan saya di sini gitu. Kayak kan one of the worries juga kan kayak nggak pernah mimpi gitu bisa ke bisnis di US, nggak pernah mimpi dikasih ministry ya di marketplace gitu. Tapi kayak when was the moment kayak, atau apakah itu sebuah proses di mana kalian sadar kayak inilah ministry yang Tuhan punya buat saya gitu.
For me, I can probably remember the year and the month, not exactly the, and then there are several moments that lead up to that. But at the point where I had successfully built a decent, good career. So I had a good job, I had a good personal relationship, I was engaged, I had great friends, I had good church, and so I thought that's exactly what God wanted to do in my life. And then I realized that actually that's what I wanted to do in my life, not so much what God wanted to do in my life. So the moment was around spring in 2001. So God decided to take all of that away from me in a period of months. So that was a wake-up call. So that allows me to think to clearly that to kind of ask, is this really what God wants me to do? Not what I wanted to do. So that was the starting point of what God is doing in my life to help transform my life. I go to church. I went to church every Sunday, give my offerings, sing in choirs, and be part. But I realized I actually just doing that because of traditions, not because of my personal relationship with God, not because of what God asked me to do. I guess if you look at the title of this, I didn't really bring my soul to wherever I'm at. I technically only bring my soul to church, but nowhere else. So that was the moment that, but at the same time, I realized that what Pa Johannes said earlier, that if you really want to be impactful on behalf of Christ, you have to be willing to be shaped by God. And that involves a lot of downs, a lot of challenges, a lot of failures, a lot of learnings and all that. it involves a lot of that. And from that, God shape you and put you in a better position. But like I said earlier, I'm going through that same thing again 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. So I kind of learned from my lessons in the past, and I said, what is it that God want me to do in this part of the world? And that's how I start asking the questions and start finding the answers around that questions. It's not what I want to do in this part of the world. It's not what career I want to have. It's what God wants to use me and the platform that He provides in this part of the world. That's how I start answering some of those questions.
Satu proses ya, dan kalau mau cerita mungkin sampai malam. Tapi saya harap waktu saya sharing sama tim sharingnya, don't focus on us, don't learn from us, tapi belajar dari apa yang Tuhan lakukan dalam hidup kami, sehingga kalian bisa belajar tentang Tuhan itu sendiri. Satu proses yang cukup panjang, apalagi kalau kita mau berusaha dengan anugerah Tuhan menjaga iman kita dalam konteks pekerjaan di Indonesia pada waktu itu. Banyak struggle. Pada waktu saya merasa terhina, saya merasa disingkirkan, di sanalah saya mengalami bahwa Tuhan adalah penolong saya. Pada waktu saya merasa sendirian, pada waktu saya merasa gagal, ya nggak sampai robotnya tenggelam gitu saya. God is my comforter, ya, Tuhan yang menghiburkan saya. Jadi perjalanan itu satu proses, kalau kita katakan sekarang spiritual formation yang terjadi dalam dunia kerja, yang proses itu terus terjadi sampai saat ini. Jadi kalau dulu waktu di perkantas saya banyak mengenal Tuhan daripada firman yang disampaikan kepada kakak-kakak pembimbing, di dalam pekerjaan saya mengalami Tuhan yang sebenarnya. Jadi sebenarnya workplace itu satu platform yang sangat baik buat kita belajar mengenal siapa Tuhan dan bagaimana Tuhan berkarya melalui hidup kita. Jadi prosesnya panjang gitu ya. Yang seperti saya katakan, waktu seusia kalian, waktu saya bahkan belum saya lulus, saya katakan the only goal is how I can survive as a disciple of Christ di tengah dunianya. Survive dalam segala hal, secara ekonomi dan sebagainya ya. Fokusnya masih ke saya gitu. So in the end, sampai perjalanan mungkin beberapa tahun yang terakhir, akhirnya Tuhan seringkali menanyakan ke saya seperti yang kata Ayub juga ya, do I serve God for nothing? Jadi akhirnya apakah selama ini saya itu pakai Tuhan for my own survival gitu sebenarnya, atau in the end of the day harusnya kan as the servant of the Lord kita yang harus dipakai Tuhan to fulfill His goal. Jadi sebenarnya pekerjaan kita penting, kita ngomong dengan Melvina sedikit, pekerjaan kita penting. Of course, there are KPI, there are goal to achieve dan sebagainya. Tapi that's not the end goal gitu. Sebetulnya. Kalau kita bisa nggak melihat ke situ. Tetapi sekali lagi, saya nggak expect fresh graduate melihat jauh ke sana ya. Seperti perjalanan saya, Tuhan membentuk saya dengan cukup banyak kegagalan, jatuh bangun ya, sampai pada poin ini. Kira-kira begitu ya.
So it's nice that you said that you don't expect us as a fresh graduate to look that far, but sometimes ini kayak sesuatu yang kalau kita bertransisi gitu dari mau lulus kerja ke kerja pindah kerja, ini kita worry-nya tuh kayak selalu ke depan jauh gitu, kayak apakah benar ini industri saya, apakah benar ini panggilan saya. Tapi then if the day to day itu harusnya lebih kayak it's not something that fresh graduate should be expected to do. Like what else should we what should we be focusing on gitu kayak all of us have our worries, but whether or not these worries reflect the actual things that we need to be worried about, or even if we should worry about anything, because kayak ada Tuhan gitu. Tapi kayak apa hal-hal yang waktu Kotim dan Ko Yohanes masuk ke dunia pekerjaan gitu, apa hal-hal yang ternyata lebih lebih harus dipikirkan gitu. Jadi kayak was there like a mismatch between your worries and what's actually happening gitu. Like was there a shock period and what was that experience like?
You want to go first?
No, that's
Saya
okay.
juga
I guess it depends kita dari mana gitu ya, starting point-nya dari mana. Jadi saya dengan tim starting point-nya beda gitu. Jadi
jadi kayak jadi is there a mismatch between like what kayak yang kita khawatirkan tuh apa sebelum kita masuk ke dunia pekerjaan, dan ternyata waktu kita udah masuk kayak hal-hal yang dikhawatirkan itu beda gitu. Kayak ada that shock period, terus kayak how was that process?
iya, karena saya sih nggak banyak mengalami shocks karena saya mulainya cukup early sejak saya masih semester 1, semester 21 saya udah kerja. Jadi blessing juga, jadi transitionnya agak oke gitu ya, dan sebenarnya dari pengalaman yang Tuhan kerjakan dalam hidup saya banyak yang saya tidak sadari, soft skill yang saya dapetin dulu itu ternyata berguna waktu saya bekerja gitu ya. Contoh ya, we are doing business is a service, business itu pelayanan betulnya. Jadi waktu di persekutuan, di tengah kesibukan saya mesti kerja, terus saya mesti sekolah, saya tuh kebetulan waktu itu sebelum jadi ketua di tim pemerhati, yang dimana mesti deketin teman SMA waktu itu ya, mulai dari SMA atau waktu kuliah yang nggak bisa datang ke persekutuan dan nggak bisa disimplify, oh pokoknya datang lah, kan kita mesti dengerin kan problemnya dia itu apa gitu. Kenapa dia nggak bisa datang, dan kita mencoba menolong dia dengan sebisa-bisanya dan sebagainya. Ternyata di dalam marketing that's the most important element gitu. It's not important of what we want to do, but it's very important to understand what they need sebenarnya kan. Ya itu dari pelayanan sebenarnya. Terus kejujuran, integritas kita itu ternyata value-nya sangat tinggi kalau di tempat pekerjaan yang saya alami paling tidak ya. Jadi itulah yang membuat customer kita itu trust ke kita, dan hubungan kita bisa berlangsung begitu lama. Jadi banyak nilai-nilai yang kalian sudah lakukan, yang kita lakukan ya, itu keep it gitu ya, do it. Dan ingat kita itu saya suka pakai istilah Paulus, we are the ambassador of Christ gitu. Jadi bawalah itu sebagai ambassador ya, jalankan semua tugas itu. Jadi saya pikir itu satu proses ya yang saya alami, yang akhirnya apakah itu berarti Tuhan mereward semua kerja keras itu, yang saya tidak mau jatuh ke prinsipal retribution principle gitu ya, bahwa the righteous will be rewarded, the wicked will be punished, karena kadang-kadang itu juga tidak berlaku begitu gitu, kenyataan yang saya lihat. Kira-kira itu ya prosesnya.
So, focus more on kayak values dan hal-hal yang memang kita sudah belajar secara Kristen itu. When we focus on that thing di marketplace, kayak it ends up being kayak a really good guiding principle gitu.
Iya, kadang-kadang juga kita perlu sacrifice ya. Not sacrificing our value, but sacrificing our time gitu ya. Kita ngomongnya walk the extra mile. Di dalam satu sisi sebagai orang Kristen kita pegang prinsip iman kita. Tapi kalau kita tidak mau kerja lebih keras daripada orang lain, so what is the ya seperti naratif yang kita sering baca dari Daniel, dari Yusuf, seperti yang lama ya, ada satu kontribusi, ada satu common good yang mereka bisa build gitu ya. Sehingga waktu mereka berdiri sebagai hamba Allah di situ itu ada satu common good, satu contribution yang mereka bisa bawa. Seperti hubungan kita dengan customer, dengan vendor, dengan supplier. So what is the contribution that we can give to them? Despite of we hold in our faith. Gitu. Jadi jangan cuma hold in our faith, but we don't contribute anything, malah ngerecokin gitu ya. Ini salah satu pertanyaan tadi Michael, what is as an employer, what we expect from the employee itu nanti. Mungkin bisa main dulu ya.
How about okay?
So I will add based on what Johannes said is one of the biggest shock that you will immediately feel, if you have not felt that already at university, is that the workplace and how you're brought up as Christian and Christ followers have two very different value systems. Right? So one, when almost every organization that you walk into will say that you need to make profit for us. You need to do it. This is how you do it. And most of the times, it's opposite of what you're being taught as Christians. That will, in general, that will be the biggest shock. Unless you start your own business like Taiwan. Unless you're your own boss, you can do that with your own ways, the Christian ways to do all that. But in general, you're gonna be in conflict with the world because the world systems and what Christ asks us to do are very different. That's the biggest shock in general. Right? So the moment you walk into your employer, most of you will likely feel lonely. Maybe some of you will feel unprepared. Maybe some of you, and again, also like Bayana said, it really depends on your background, your upbringing. If you're used to being left to do work on your own, being independent and all that, the shock will be less as opposed to if you've never been asked to work alone, to figure things out on your own, to being left alone and all that. So that's more on the work side. But what I will build, what Johanna said, is that your integrity, because you are being measured, you as Christian being measured, you have a different set of biblical values that world organization, most of the times don't abide by. You're going to be asked to do this while this is what you're being. That will be the biggest shock. You will be like try to swim against across from the waves, and it seems like you're lonely. So that will be the biggest shocks in general. But there's a way to not feel lonely, to not feel unprepared, all that. But that's a different question to answer.
I mean, since you brought it up, so we might as well go into that question. Yeah, how do you address this this conflict between the expectation of different value sets? Is it your attitude, or is it like principles, like they discuss like values and like key truths like berdoa sama Tuhan, or is it something else? Like, how do you navigate through this conflict of value sets?
So I just came back 2 weeks ago from training some of the largest companies in Indonesia. These are like BUMN, the largest family conglomerates. I can tell you with certainty that most of them have no idea how to deal with your generation. They have no clue. Yeah. So that's your. So the first thing that I would advise is to find the right employers. Now, this may be easier said than done in general, right? But in general, so before you figure that out, here's the question that you can do on your own. The finding the right employer sometimes depends on factors that you do not control. But here are factors that you can control as Christians. Right? The first thing that you can do is always be attached to someone that you can look up to as mentor or role model. Especially someone that is a godly people in your environment, whether it's your church, your neighbors, obviously your family, your pastors, your Christian friends, all that. Have someone in your life that you can look up to that can help you navigate that. That's a huge help for me, huge help for the people that I talk to in especially in the line of work. The second is find a healthy and growing church. Here's my definition of healthy and growing church. I really only look at two factors that makes up a healthy and growing church. The first one is if it has a very strong small group ministry. Meaning that someone that a church that has a group, a small, relatable, meaning your age group, your demographics, that you can be a part of that help you grow up as not just as a professional but also as Christians. Right? So this is I'm not talking about going to church on Sunday. I'm talking about a church body that has a very strong small group ministry. That's the first thing. The second thing, what is part of a healthy and growing church, is that if part of that small group ministry has an outward focus, meaning the church has a positive community and social impact. So it's not just inward looking, it's not just learning about your faith, learning about Bibles and all that, which is important, but also practicing it. That's part of a healthy ministry, and also part. So if that's a environment that can help support you, that the second part will be a lot easier to do, which is what I said first. Find the right employer. Because if you have to find the right employer without all those support alongside you, finding the right employer may not be right to begin with. Because you may if it's hard enough for you to be part of university right now, university environment, it will be even harder when you have to work. You're going to be sucked in even more into the world system, the different value system. So it's either the world system or your Christian biblical value system. So that would be my quick answer. My quick answer, 5-minute answer, is that find a healthy, growing church, find a role model, a mentor, and then find the right company to work for. How to find that? That's a different story then.
Yeah, I think to be fair, saya perlu kasih ke case study aja yang lebih jelas. Karena kadang-kadang kita tuh waktu beberapa contoh di mana seperti tadi yang Kim jelasin, kita harus make a judgment ya, untuk kita pilihan ya. Tadi Tim udah jelasin find the right employer. Kalau dalam konteks saya dulu, ya saya cari pekerjaan yang sesuai dengan nilai-nilai iman kita. Contohnya saya mulai usahanya sebagai trader untuk ekspor. Karena import di waktu itu di Indonesia banyak sekali red line-nya gitu ya, banyak sekali jalur-jalur merahnya. Jadi kita punya pilihan sebenarnya, mau pilih employer-nya atau mau pilih what kind of business yang bisa sesuai dengan kita. Terus hal yang lain yang perlu diingat juga, our choices is always come with the consequences, with the cost. Waktu 98, 99 atau jatuh, itu illegal logging itu parah di Indonesia ya. Saya bisnis mebel, pakai kayu jati. Waktu itu penjarahan luar biasa dan banyak sekali kayu-kayu yang bicara itu bukan kayu yang jelek, kayu yang gede-gede, kayu yang bagus-bagus. Well, in the end, customer kita komplain, kamu punya harga lebih mahal, kayunya nggak lebih bagus. Gitu. Karena kita beli resmi dari perhutani, mereka beli dari kayu jarahan. Gitu. What should I do? Ya, kalau saya mau nggak kehilangan bisnis, saya mesti kompromi kan. Ya, kalau semua orang begitu beli dari jarahan, saya beli dari kayu jarahan. But saya bergumul dengan Tuhan, akhirnya saya jelasin ke mereka bahwa saya tidak bisa lakukan itu. Tapi katanya kan harus tulus, merpati, cerdik seperti ular kan. Saya ingetin chain store yang gede-gede, you want to buy from them, go ahead. But once the French public or American public knows that you purchase from the illegal logging, you are finished. Mereka nggak berani gitu. But I lost what number of customers, what we call it mom and pop ya, yang mana itu company dia sendiri gitu ya. Some importer di Belgium lah, di Norway, yang dia import sendiri kok. He doesn't care, the business is business. Yeah, I know you are a good person, but your price is 20% higher. So ya kita tetap teman baik aja, cuma I cannot buy from you. Ya udah gitu. Jadi kita akan kehilangan. Jadi pilihan langkah kita dalam pekerjaan selalu ada konsekuensinya, selalu ada cost yang harus kita mau berani bayar. Tapi don't worry, even if very tough, very difficult, God's grace is sufficient.
Okay, thank you for all the sharing. Sekarang I think kita bisa buka questions to the kalian semua. Kalau ada pertanyaan, jadi bisa langsung direct pertanyaannya antara ke Tim dan ke Yohanes berdua atau individually. Ada yang punya pertanyaan?
How to find the right employer?
In general, there are two types of organizations. The one that will hire you, they will tell you that they know exactly what to do with you. They give you specific scope. They train you slowly, raise you up slowly, but they don't give you a lot of freedom, a lot of flexibility, and you're gonna learn just those one or two things. Or you can work with a second type of organization that gives you freedom of flexibility, gives you a lot to learn, don't necessarily have just one or two things, and kind of gives you a lot of exposures. As opposed to the first one, give you very limited exposure. So the first one tends to be large organization, multinationals, huge family conglomerate. If you work in Indonesia, there's a lot of those. The other side will tend to be smaller or medium-sized startups, social enterprises. The people running the organization probably about your age. So that from a fit, you have to decide which one fit. So the one will give you, I guess, a slower career path, but it gives you stability if you work with a larger organization. The other one will give you a faster career progression, give you a lot bigger exposures, but it's also risky. So, meaning that because they're small, it may not be as stable as the first one. So how do you make the right decision? Again, it's based on your goals, but that's why I first said you also have to be strong Christians to help you navigate them choices. Because I'm just giving you a very simple comparison, but it's bigger than just those simple comparisons, right? So there are companies that make products or provide services that may not align with Christian values, or those are a separate issue, but I'm just describing you in general ways. Most Indonesian companies tend to when you come home, when they look at most of you will probably look at the larger organizations, either BOMN or the MNCs or the huge family conglomerates. Nothing wrong with that. It's just make sure that it's also have some. You also have some set of spiritual criteria that you go through to make that decision. But in general, those are what's right for you. I have no. There's no one straight answer. What's right for you? Yeah. One set of answers. There are many different answers.
Saya menambahin sedikit ya. Tapi saya pikir kalian masih seumur begini, ada banyak privilege yang umur kita udah nggak punya lagi gitu ya. Ada satu job. When you want to change the world, if you want to change the world, do it when you are single. But once you are married, you can't even change the TV channel.
Wise words.
Waktu saya dulu seumur kalian, ada kebangunan rohaninya pendeta Stephen Tong di Surabaya. Saya terlibat pakai tim yang follow up gitu ya. Selesai itu ada satu om tua, mungkin seumur kita sekarang. Saya bimbing, omnya itu juga nangis, habis nonton banyak patong. Dia bilang dia tuh kerja di satu company sebagai accounting gitu ya, sudah 40 tahun di situ. Ya anaknya juga masih agak kecil karena dia terlambat nikah, terus terlambat punya anak. Tapi di company itu dia mesti buat double booking, ya, cerita klasik lah ya. Jadi buat double booking. What should I do? Saya speechless gitu ya. I know it's not that simple. Leave it behind, follow Christ. Ya, saya nggak bisa ngomong kayak begitu. Jadi kadang-kadang dalam hal yang pragmatis ya, bagi saya tadi bilang, as long as kalau kita punya pilihan untuk pilih. Tapi saya melihatnya saat ini, mungkin tim lebih tahu kalau punya datanya semua. It seems like the employment environment now is not getting better, it's getting tougher dengan automation dan sebagainya. Jadi job market itu bakal lebih susah buat kita. Okay. Yang penting adalah don't lose your value, don't lose your faith. Masukin aja di company yang memang Tuhan izinkan itu kita masuk di situ. Kembali lagi kalau kita lihat narasi itu ada Musa, Yusuf dan sebagainya, itu semua juga bukan employer yang baik sebenarnya kan. But in the end of the day, they can become the salt and light di situ. Yang penting don't lose our value. Kalau perlu withdraw keluar. Saya tutup dengan satu pengalaman yang cukup menarik. Tadi tanya yang paling memalukan apa, saya lupa, jadi sekarang mungkin salah satu ya. Kita dulu ada satu periode waktu kita tuh banyak ekspor ke Jepang ya. Saya dapat anugerah Tuhan dengan ada satu orang Jepang yang di-hire oleh perusahaan Indonesia, akhirnya perusahaan bangkrut, jadi orangnya akhirnya harus kerja sama saya. Padahal pada waktu itu kami masih sangat kecil sekali, jadi belum mampu untuk bayar. Ini pokoknya salary si Jepang ini paling tinggi deh gitu ya. Cuma dia bisa bring customer gitu. Ya oke lah, fine. Nah, ada seperti kita tahu kalau kerja dengan orang Jepang soal perempuan tadi, soal pelacuran, itu menjadi satu hal yang udah norma yang umum bagi mereka. Dan pada waktu itu saya juga tidak berani terlalu terang-terangan menolak gitu ya. Makanya saya katakan proses. Oke, selesai dinner, mereka diantarin ke tempat pelacuran ya. Kalau di Surabaya bukan yang low class, agak high class, jadi di perumahan gitu. Dia bilang fine, but as a Christian I will not do it, so go ahead, I will wait on di sofa di tempat tunggu. Saya masuk ketemu sama ketua komisi pemuda gereja kita waktu di Surabaya itu. Dia kelihatan saya, wah bingung, saya bilang enggak, saya cuma nganterin. Ya, I know, oke kita duduk bareng gitu. Karena dia kerja di Sumitomo perusahaan Jepang juga, as employee. Saya masih owner kan, meskipun owner kecil, tapi saya owner. Dia as employee dan dia harus entertain, harus antri. Tetapi dia juga punya prinsip yang sama, dia anterin tok, tapi dia tidak ikut masuk. Kliennya yang masuk gitu. Nah, tadi tim udah jelasin perlunya ada self group ya. Jadi akhirnya oke, kita pikirin bareng kalau case kayak gini gimana gitu. Do you have a faith enough to say no ke Jepang-Jepang ini? Bagi saya, the cost is I will lose the business. For him, the cost he will lose the job. Nah, akhirnya kita kumulin, kita bilang yuk kita uji Tuhan kita ya. Tapi sekali lagi ini pengalaman kami ya. Jadi jangan diterapin juga. Kita uji Tuhan kita sino. Kita dari pertemuan itu kita berkumpul bersama sebulan, kemudian setelah itu saya tegaskan ke manajer saya, entertain kita berhenti di dining table. The rest I will not get involved. Dan dia juga kasih tahu company. Ternyata enggak itu. Saya tidak kehilangan customer, dia juga tidak kehilangan pekerjaan. Because lagi-lagi ya kerjanya dia itu bagus. So as an employer point of view, mau fire dia gara-gara dia nggak mau nganterin ke pelacuran, I don't think is something yang mereka akan lakuin gitu ya. Company kita juga harga kita kompetitif, service dalam hal bisnis ya baik. Masa gara-gara nggak nemenin gitu aja, terus dia stop dari saya. Jadi sometimes kita tuh takut sendiri aja.
Let me add one quick thing. So just remind me of wise words, pepatah. Here's a simple career advice for most of you, if not for all of you. The best time to look for a job is when you have job. Think about it. The best time to look for a job is when you have job. Okay? So with that in mind, let me give you a simple example. So in my line of work, I train leaders, company quote-unquote leaders. I help develop organization. I help them go through huge changes. That's my line of work. I deal a lot with people that I consider have a God symptoms inside, meaning they feel like they are God in their own companies. So that's most of it. I deal with CEO of largest companies, and most of the times owners of conglomerates, most of the time with people like that. So I call it a God syndrome. So they believe that they're God within their environment, right? So my failure rates, it's very high. So here's what I want to add to what Johannes said. That what I said earlier as well, that God uses even some of the worst circumstances and environments to shape you. Right? Doesn't mean that you willingly walk into a bad environment and then all of a sudden become part of that bad environment. Where there is no such a thing as one quote-unquote Christian organization. Even churches have problems. There's no such a thing as 100% Christian organization. Even if you run into churches, when you run into churches have problems. I consulted for churches for 15 years around the world, and I know with 100% certainty that they have problems. There are problems that most typical organizations face. Because if you have human being, then you will have problems. That's just the nature of the business, right? But what I want to say is that all these challenges and all these circumstances that God put you, maybe sometimes beyond your control, maybe sometimes God uses that platform to put you there for certain reasons you may not know. But that is the reason why that you want to have a very strong spiritual family and environment to help support you. Because even if you pick the right, quote-unquote, right organization according to your plan or your criteria, you're going to walk into those kind of circumstances everywhere. I walk into it every time that I walk into working with any organization or clients. right? The question is that, are you using it as, will God use that environment or circumstances or scenario to be a platform for His work through you? Right? So you don't want to look at failures, you don't want to look at all those things as just, oh, it's something that you want to avoid. Right? If you have a strong spiritual community, spiritual support, God can use those even failures, even challenges to help shape you. And you can take it from someone who have high 80% failure rates. In my line of work, my failure rate is about 80%. So if I have 20% success rate, that is considered high in my line of work. In any other line of work, that is considered super failures. But in my line of work, if I can convince someone who is super rich and have power beyond God, who think that they're God, 20% of the time, that is considered success. Most of the time, I walked into, like Johannes said, I walk into those kind of environment where you are being tested and God will use that as a test. But if you don't have a spiritual support system, strong spiritual support system around you, you're going to fall. And you're not going to be able to learn anything from it. You're not going to gain your faith because of it. You may even fall into that temptation.
Okay, thank you so much Tim dan Johannes untuk sharingnya. I think sekarang kita bisa bagi into small groups because there's a lot of things that were shared. There's a lot of advice in terms of values, in terms of attitude, tapi juga practical advice like finding the right community and finding the right employer. Maybe can we break into groups of 3 for about 10 minutes? Ya, jadi cari bagi jadi kelompok isinya 3 orang, terus share with each other kayak like what's your main takeaway from this panel discussion, and also what's the practical steps that you can take personally in your life at this moment, in terms of finding a job and transitioning into a new environment. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Pak.
Sebelum kita break, kita mau menyatakan terima kasih dulu panelis kita, ya, Pak Johannes dan Pak Tim. So, mungkin bisa alumni yang paling muda siapa? Jane kali yang paling muda. Mungkin ya Jane bisa mewakili kita. So, kasih tanda terima kasih dan juga kita mendoakan buat panelis kita. Mungkin is there anything that we can pray for you?
Pray that you stay faithful. Yeah, till the end.
Amen.
Silakan, nanti saya yang fotoin.
Oh, pakai acara foto.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Oke. 1, 2, 3. Oke. Sama boleh minta saya Kak Petrus untuk mendoakan buat rekan-rekan panelis dan juga menutup sesi kita sebelum kita break ke small group.
Mari kita berdoa bersama. Kami mengucap syukur untuk kemurahan Tuhan yang mengetahui bahwa kehidupan kami di dunia tidak mudah. Pada waktu kami meyakini akan nilai-nilai yang Allah tanamkan dalam kehidupan kami sedang berhadapan dan berbenturan bahkan dengan nilai-nilai duniawi yang kami tinggal di dalamnya. Kami tahu bahwa sebagai manusia yang Kau ciptakan, kami ingin survive di dunia ini. Namun kami ingin belajar setia di hadapan Tuhan. Kami tahu bukannya hal yang tidak mungkin bagi kami untuk tetap tinggal di dunia yang buruk ini, namun kami tetap setia kepada Tuhan seperti yang sudah dicontohkan oleh kedua panelis kami di dalam perjuangan mereka, di dalam kerinduan untuk taat kepada Tuhan. Terima kasih untuk setiap pengalaman yang Tuhan izinkan mereka alami, setiap pergumulan, setiap keputusan demi keputusan, pilihan demi pilihan